Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan91's Garage, and on this episode we're going to be porting out the budget TD04 Turbo that we got from Maxpeedingrods. If you haven't seen the first episode, where I give it a review and a strip down, I'll put a link for you in this top corner. So let's dive straight into it, port out the turbine housing to improve its flow. If we use the gasket here, we can see that the current entry isn't exactly lined up with where the exhaust gases are going to be flowing from. Obviously the hole in this gasket is larger than the exit from the manifold, which is about 49mm diameter. So what we're going to do today is port out the extra material here, and that way that should encourage the gases to flow more easily into the actual scroll itself. That way we won't have the gases come rocketing out of the exhaust manifold, crashing into this step and then having to drop their way in. So the manifold's going to be central to that. So we'll just line up all our holes. And gently draw around it. That looks reasonable. And we know the manifold exit is 49mm, so we'll check out our hole templates and put that on there. 49mm is basically the inside of that pen line I've just drawn, so thankfully that marker appears to be the right thickness, and you've actually got our internal line there anyway. So if I just take out the material up to this, the inside of the black line, that'll remove all the material we need. I'm just going to grind this out basically on a chamfer. The actual thickness here for the flange, it's about 13mm, and obviously there's quite a lot of meat there to take out, but the actual scroll part here, or the thickness of the wall here on the turbine housing inlet, isn't particularly thick. It's only perhaps, according to my calibrated engineer's fingers, it's about 6mm at its thinnest over here, perhaps even less. So that's not great to start grinding away down here at. So what I'm going to do is basically take off a nice heavy chamfer and finish it basically the same thickness as that, so I'm only removing material out of the flange at the top. Once that's done, we can smooth it out with some sanding barrels and we'll go from there. Yep. Please don't blow up. Yeah, lovely. So, with the grinder ready, set it up with a tungsten carbide bit with a ball end on it. I've marked out the line on the inside so I know how deep to go. So essentially all I've got to do is remove material from this outer circle to this lower line here. So we'll give it a whirl. And that's the worst of it ported out. I have caught it a couple of times here where I've skipped out, climbed up the side, and I've actually scratched the surface here, which isn't good obviously for sealing, but I'll be able to linish that flat and just take that off and resurface that down so it's flat again anyway. Now it's time to swap to a sanding bit, just clean it up a bit. I think we'll leave it there before we bugger it up, so not bugger it up anymore. Nice and smooth in there anyway, feels good. So yeah, much improved from where it was. Should help the flow a lot. So this is my life for the next hour or so, I guess. The main thing is it's coming out, so this one's nearly gone. This one's going to need a little bit more work, so is this one, but either this is a strange shape or this is a strange shape because we haven't actually touched down on all of it yet, so I'd be actually quite interested to see how flat that was. Don't worry, that noise is fine, it means you're winning. It's getting a bit hot now, but definitely improving. This one's nearly gone. This one's getting less and less. This is the worst one. I really gouged that, but at least it's coming out. I thought I'd f***ed it up. Nothing several hours of a sander can't fix, so everything's fine. And don't forget, when you modify cars, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, so don't be upset about breaking stuff. So all the marks are gone. We've got a slight difference in angle here. You can see the sort of slight in shape, but that is now hotter than Jamie Lee Curtis in her prime. So I'm going to leave that to cool down for a bit and then we'll check how flat it is. This is a 0.1mm feeler gauge. It won't go in there or anywhere along that edge. Nothing along there. Tiny bit at the end, but it only comes up to the bolt hole and the seal's nowhere near that. Slightly across this way. So the 0.1mm comes up to just the inside of that bolt hole there, so there's not going to be a problem with sealing on that. You won't get under there. Nothing there or there. I'd say that was a success. So now we just have a quick look at the wastegate. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's just this tiny little tag on the inside. I think I just used the sander on this. So yeah, got rid of the tag, smoothed it out. It was pretty rough. There was just a pretty sharp burr there basically, so smoothed it out. I don't want to increase the size of it. I want the penny, because I want the penny to cover it properly. It's a pretty huge wastegate anyway. I mean, it's at least one thumb's worth. That's about 25mm, so that's good. This is good. And there it is mocked up with the flange on. So 49mm here. And as we can see in there, it's a straight shot now. No steps, no lips. No extra restrictions or turbulence. So we've port matched the inlet flange to the turbine housing. That's got pretty good, smooth that out now, but then the actual sort of entrance to the scroll is actually pretty rough. There's some pretty nasty sort of sandy casting marks in there, so we're just going to give that a little tidy up. Got a cone shaped sanding roll on this, and what we learned from the last escapades into this were Make sure you're comfortable. So I'm going to sit down this time. Make sure you can actually see what you're doing. So we've got a light here. And don't trip over your own power cord, because that tends to have some sort of crazy hand results that end up with you scribbling all over the top of this surface. I'm not trying to blame the tools, but always be comfortable and concentrate on what you're doing. We also learned that if you're going to cut a chamfer on the outside of this, it's a lot easier to do it with a cone-shaped burr than it is to do with a straight-sided burr that I used, because that way, instead of having to angle the whole of the actual die grinder to cut the angle, this has already got the angle on it for you, so you can keep the die grinder more vertical, so you don't have to end up sort of swooping it around quite as much, and it actually makes it a lot easier to cut an angle. And so I'll put you back up on the tripod. There isn't much you can see here. All you're going to see is a little whizzy thing and some dust coming off, so it's going to be a bit of a before and after, so here we go. There you go, managed to free that up, whatever it is. And we smoothed out the sides there as well. I don't really fancy going any deeper. There's obviously the danger of catching the chuck on the outside of the walls if you do. Could do with some longer bits really if you're going to get right down in there. But I don't really fancy messing about with the stuff down in the scroll, and you can only get the first couple of inches of it, or the first sort of 50mm of it anyway. So yeah, vast improvement over what it was. There was a tiny little, can't find it, oh, there we go, tiny little sort of porous part in the casting. It's just, hopefully the rest of it's okay, but yeah. So that's it, all polished up now. Started off with some 100 grit sanding cartridges just to get the worst of the skin off of the inside, and then once I got the worst of that scale off, went up to 240 grit, and then finished it off with some 320 grit wet and dry paper by hand. Obviously changing direction with a 320 grit to help smooth out. So that's it really. Ready to get reassembled. Big improvement on where we started, and should help with a bit more flow. The removal of the material here for the port matching is going to be the big gain, and the polishing up really was more just to make it look pretty, but it'll do something. Once again, thanks for watching. My name's Dan, this is Dan91's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.